Hello there guys, and welcome back to the Q8 Pilot channel. It is 1700 Zulu, 2000 hours local time here in Kuwait City, Kuwait. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. I know a lot of you guys have been very excited about this live stream simply because you're very interested in my settings and how can we achieve the maximum number of FPS in Microsoft Flight Sim 2024. So a little bit of heads up as to what we're going to do. And by the way, I had some issues with my Elgato Stream Deck after the update, so I wasn't able to use the Stream Deck for the stream, and hence I had some issues before starting, but hopefully nothing too serious. We are currently in the default Cessna 172 and currently situated at LaGuardia Airport. This is a payware scenery, and you have all the important numbers here. As you can see, we have the CPU utilization, the GPU memory utilization, the FPS, the latency. You've got your the clock, the core clocks, and the temperatures as well. Of course, we can also see the whether we have thermal throttling or no, and you have also the download and upload rate. Not very important, but it's there for you. So what I'd like to do is to begin by showing you first some of the settings, like my Nvidia control panel settings and my what other stuff that I do, how I configure my system. First of all, Microsoft Flight Sim is running on a separate drive. So if I go here, you see I have a drive here. It's called MSFS. This is, of course, an M.2 SSD. This is the fastest hard drive at the time that I've set up the system. I'm sure there are faster hard drives now, but I have only MSFS installed on this drive. As you can see, I have X-Plane, I have apps, and I have my operating system as well here on the C drive. But I highly recommend, that's one of the best recommendations that I got when I set up my system, is to always install your flight simulator on a separate drive and don't install anything else there with it. So that's the first thing. The other thing that I want to show you, first we can get rid of this. The second thing I want to show you is my Nvidia control panel settings. So let me go to the app. No, that's not what I wanted to do, but we're going to need that, so we'll leave it for the time being. Okay, so let's go to the Nvidia control panel settings for Microsoft Flight Sim. First of all, I'd like to show you some of the things that I've done here. If you go to the video, adjust video color settings, let me maximize this here. You'll see that I'm using, let me go inside the cockpit so that, yeah, that's better. Okay, so I'm using the Nvidia settings, and I select Advanced tab, Dynamic Range, and I use the full. This gives better color in the sim. Then, of course, as you can see, I've disabled G-Sync. If you have a monitor that has more than 120 hertz, you don't really need G-Sync. It's really not going to benefit you that much. If you are on a lower hertz refresh rate for your monitor, then I highly recommend that you do enable G-Sync. In my case, really not going to do anything. So next we're going to go, everything else here is pretty much default. Now if you go to the manage settings on the global settings, this is something I've shown. It was a very popular video where I changed the shader cache size to unlimited, and then of course you have to delete the DX cache and what have you. I have a very detailed tutorial on that. Now for the program settings in Microsoft Flight Sim, of course you can see explained here. So let's go to Microsoft Flight Sim 2024, and sorry, 2024 ain't cutting the mustard despite all the hype. Yep, agreed. Frostset Simulation, how are you doing, my friend? Long time no see. Welcome all of you guys in chat. Welcome. Okay, So Microsoft Flight Sim 2024, I leave everything on default, so I don't change anything with the exception of low latency mode to on. Then I change power management mode to prefer maximum performance, and threaded optimization is set to on. Everything else should be on default, okay, or the global settings. Now in the global settings, I don't change everything. I always hit restore, and the only thing I change is the shader cache. Right? Okay. Simple enough. Let's go ahead and close that. And if you guys have any questions, I will definitely give you the chance to ask, and I will try to answer as many questions today as we can. So the other thing that I am using the latest version of DLSS. So if you go to the DLSS swapper, again, there are a lot of tutorials on how to do this, but let me show you this very quickly. So if you go to the DLSS swapper, you'll see that I'm using the latest version, which is the 310.3.0.0. This is basically DLSS 4. This is the latest version of DLSS 4. All right. So that's that. And one important thing that you need to do in order to use this successfully is to, let me actually exit this one. Yeah. In order to do this successfully, we're going to go to the Nvidia app, and from the graphics, we're going to select Microsoft Flight Simulator. We're going to scroll down all the way here, and then we're going to go to the DLSS override model preset. We're going to click that. You're going to select use different setting for each DLSS technology, and frame generation, use the latest. And of course, I have the latest in the DLSS swapper for both frame generation and for DLSS. Okay, now a very good resource on how to set things up in the Nvidia app and all about DLSS, I highly recommend my very good friend Mark, or the Sim Hanger. If you don't know him, please do visit his channel. He's got a wealth of information on how to set up Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 and 2024. Right. So that out of the way, now it's time for you to see my settings. So you need to see my in-sim settings. So we're going to go to the settings here. I know this is kind of bothering you here on the side, but we have Nvidia DLSS. Now, global rendering, I have everything maxed out. As you can see here, everything is maxed out. The only exception is the traffic airport quality and air traffic. This is basically the static traffic and the default Asobo AI traffic, which I don't like. So I've turned this off, but everything else, as you can see here, is on maximum. Right, as we are in the settings, let me go ahead and turn off Nvidia DLSS and go back and say resume. All right, so now we are running the sim without Nvidia DLSS, so there's no frame generation. And notice how the FPS will drop, obviously, but notice how the latency has also increased. So there is a direct relationship between latency and using DLSS. DLSS will improve the latency significantly, as you can see here. You can see here that we are now getting 63 FPS, which, by the way, isn't bad, considering considering the settings that I'm actually running at maximum settings. And we are, of course, not in a very involved aircraft. So you're asking Q8, what about if we load up something like the A350 by AnyBuilds? Horrible performance there. And what about the, for example, A380? Well, let's not jump the gun, guys. I will show you the AnyBuilds A350 or the A380 in a very involved airport, and we'll take a look at the results together, and we'll see how that works. Okay, I get 5 amps when I get max. Ooh, wow. I hope Asobo already fixes the VRAM leaking. 12 GB VRAM getting max is insane. Yeah. All right. So here's what we're going to do now. First of all, I don't want to make this boring, so I don't want to just keep the aircraft on the ground. So let's go ahead and release the parking brake, and let's go ahead and take off. here from LaGuardia. And as you can see here, now without frame generation, the sim is running pretty smooth. We're getting 60 FPS. The latency is high, but not bad. All right, we'll wait for 60 knots there. All right, there we go. And we are airborne. All right. And again, as you can see, very, very smooth experience overall. And as I pan around the camera, again, very, very smooth. And we can retract the flaps. All right, let's go ahead and switch to the outside view. Again, you can see that the sim is running pretty smooth. Things are looking very, very nice. And there are no stuttering. At least I'm not seeing any stuttering. Now, you might see some stuttering maybe from YouTube, but I am getting absolutely no stuttering whatsoever. And this is, again, without any frame generation. Okay, so this is just really running the sim without the Nvidia native frame generation. Now, one of the very interesting things is if you go to the beautiful app that only costs, what, $7? Lossless scaling. I'm going to bring up lossless scaling now. And I'm going to go to 300 FPS here in adaptive mode. Now, lossless scaling uses the DXGI capture API. So it uses the same API used by software that record your screen. And it does a very, very good job at generating frames. It does it very well at the expense of latency and visual quality. Let's see if that's the case, though, because I have not seen any degradation in visual quality when using lossless scaling. Now, remember, we're using 70 FPS. We have 70 FPS and 13, or the maximum was 17 millisecond in terms of the latency. You can see, again, the CPU usage and the GPU usage as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead now, and first, actually, before we do, let's do fixed, and let's do a multiplier of 2. I'm going to say scale, and now we're just going to wait a little bit. Let me bring the speed down a little bit here. All right, so now we have lossless scaling, doubling our frames. You can see that the number of frames has gone down. The reason why is that lossless scaling uses your current frames to generate additional ones. So it needs a little bit of a base. So we went down by, what, about 12, 15 FPS? And that's what lossless scaling needs in order to maintain steady FPS and generate double of the amount. Now, one big recommendation for you guys, having a steady stream of FPS, of generated frames, is very essential for having a very smooth and stutter-free experience. So let's do the same thing. So we are going to no, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's do the same thing. So I'm going to use adaptive mode, and instead of, we're going to say just 120. So let me just bring this down here to, actually, we can just come here and say 120. All right. And now we are going to wait a little bit. And now you can see here, I'm not sure if you can see because it's white, but now we're getting steady 120 FPS. Now, you can see it now. You can see this here up in the screen, 120 FPS. This is a steady generation of FPS, which ensures that our looks like lossless scaling has stopped. No, it's there. Okay, so it just took the display. Okay, so you can see now we have 120 FPS, and it will try to take as much as it wants in order to maintain a steady stream. Obviously, if you take this down a little bit, notice how the latency has increased, but now you have a very smooth experience with the lossless scaling. And I don't really mind the increased latency because it's not something that I can actually feel. And if you go to the external view, look at this. Look at how everything is sharp, crisp, and clear. there is absolutely no degradation in the visual quality of the sim. Very, very nice indeed. Look at that. Again, very, very nice. A little bit of jitters there as the frames go down, and lossless scaling wants to maintain your 120 FPS. Okay. TAA is the sharpest. We are on TAA for sure. Okay, so as you can see now, we do have a solution without frame generation, which is lossless scaling, which gives us about 120 FPS, which is double what we're getting right now, right here in this sim. And you can either use a multiplier of 2, you can use a multiplier of 3, and you can use adaptive mode and set the FPS so that you get a steady number of FPS coming to your sim. Now, you may not be able to achieve this, and the key is how many frames you're getting natively. If you are getting low frames natively, then lossless scaling is going to have issues, because as you can see, it has taken about 15 or so FPS in order to generate 120. One other thing to note, in the adaptive mode, most of the frames are generated. So most of the frames are actually not the native frames. So it will create more sort of artificial frames between each frame in order to maintain the steady FPS. In the fixed mode, it will try to use a balanced number of frames using both. So it will generate for every native frame another AI, if you will, AI generated frame. So for every native frame, there is another frame that is generated. In adaptive mode, most of the frames are generated, and that is the reason why visual quality can be degraded. But as you can see here, there is no degradation in the visual quality whatsoever. Everything is looking sharp, and it looks exactly as if we were using Nvidia frame generation. A little bit maybe during panning inside the cockpit, I feel a little bit of slowness, but nothing too serious. All right, so now if I want to go all the way to 300 FPS with the adaptive mode, it's probably going to increase my latency. So let's go ahead and try that. So we are at 120 frames. We're going to increase that all the way to 300 frames. And let's see what happens now. Now, it's going to take more of those frames here, and as you can see here, it's unable to maintain a steady 300 frames because it does not have sufficient frames here. So the maximum that it can go to is 151 frames to maintain stability of the sim. But as you can see, it is very smooth, looking very, very nice as you pan the camera around. No degradation in performance whatsoever, as you can see here. Now, the fun thing is let me go ahead now and go to the settings. And now I'm going to go here, and I'm going to enable frame generation in Nvidia DLSS. And I'm going to say save and resume. Now we're going to see what happens as we, now we're getting more frames here. Let me go to lossless scaling. Let me unscale. All right, and now if I go to the sim, natively we are getting 113 FPS, a big jump from the 60 FPS that we were getting earlier. And the sim is pretty smooth, and latency is very low, as you can see here, much lower latency even from without lossless scaling and just with the default frames. Now, this is going to put a little bit of strain on the GPU, without a doubt. You can see here memory usage is higher, but things are still pretty smooth and looking very, very good. Blue tint is mild trade-off to have the best ground scenery. Yep. Okay. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to enable lossless scaling in adaptive mode, and we're going to put target is 300 FPS. Now let's see what we get now. All right. The first thing you'll see is now we have 300 FPS. you can see that the number of frames natively has been decreased because lossless scaling is now using the frames that are available to it in order to generate 300 FPS. You'll see that it goes up and down from time to time. You can see here. So it is unable to maintain it all the time, but most of the time it's able to maintain 300 FPS. Look at this. Look at how the latency has increased though, over 20 milliseconds. And by the way, anything below 40 milliseconds, you're good. But ideally, you want this to be lower than 40 milliseconds in order to enjoy a smooth experience. And now look at how butter smooth the sim is. Yes, 300 FPS running Microsoft Flight Sim 2024 at this really outrageous number of FPS, and you can see how smooth the sim is with Nvidia DLSS frame generation and lossless scaling together. There's again no degradation in the visual quality whatsoever, and there are no stuttering at all. So the conclusion here is, guys, even if you do not have a Nvidia card that is capable of generating FPS, as you can see and have witnessed here, you are able to generate a large number of frames in Microsoft Flight Sim 2024, and by the way, for any other game with lossless scaling. You can use the adaptive mode, but use it with caution. You can pretty much run your sim to the ground if it already has low FPS, and you target a very large number of frames there in the adaptive mode. That might more than likely will crash your sim because it will run out of frames, and then the lossless scaling will be unable to generate sufficient frames for you. If you have an Nvidia card that is capable of generating frames natively, you can still benefit significantly from lossless scaling. This app is just really an amazing app. And you can see now things are in the distance are taking time to load. Now, if you don't want this, if you want better, texture loading, especially far in the distance, turn off Nvidia frame generation. Use lossless scaling with your native FPS and see how things run a lot smoother. My preferred setting is to turn off Nvidia frame generation completely and use lossless scaling with adaptive mode and lock the FPS at 60. That is the best result that I have received so far running the sim with, for example, when I fly in an area like this here in New York, which is very involved scenery, it's got, the loading of the scenery as I fly is much faster, as there is a lot less strain on the GPU, and there is more strain probably on the capture API that lossless scaling uses, which I think does very well. So all of what you've seen here, so you're saying Q8, you are flying in the Cessna 172, which doesn't really require that much resources. So how about you show us something a little bit more involved? Okay. Modern games need more VRAM. It is what it is. Yes, that is true. Thank you, Rand. I'm glad you're finding this NVIDIA series or newer required. No, NVIDIA 4 series is sufficient. You don't need anything. You don't need a 5 series for this. All right. I'll try not to fly into the building. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is we are going to go to a different scenario. I'm going to go to lossless scaling. I'm going to say unscale. And then we're going to go back to the main menu. Now, the most notorious aircraft when it comes to performance is the Inibuilds A350. So why don't we load the Inibuilds A350, and we are going to do the same tests with Let me here just go here real quick. All right, so let's save and back. And we're going to go to the aircraft. And let's see here. Where is the ini builds? There is the ini builds. Okay, so we're taking it with the cabin. All right, so to, again, run a really stress test here, we're going to say save and back. Don't mind the livery. And let's go to, what do you guys think? Los Angeles, all right? So Los Angeles Airport, again, a very involved airport. And we're going to set the aircraft, again, on the runway. So let's see here. Where do we want to place it? I think we will put the aircraft on runway, one of these runways here, maybe 7 left. Or no, you know what? Let's put it on 24 left. Okay, so that's 24 left. And we're going to zoom all the way out. And now let's say start. Now, this is, guys, not going to be a stream to test my piloting skills. So we're going to do some things here to bypass the startup procedure. And this is mainly so that we can run these tests. So while the sim loads, let's see, select a heavy cloud layer also. I think the conditions are IFR, so I think it's going to be pretty heavy. Never seen a game in my life use more than 7 GB of VRAM in the maximum settings. 7 GB of RAM. No, I've seen X-Plane use more than that. MSFS is just bugged as... It is bugged. It is there, but it's getting better. Can you also do the Phoenix A320? We can sure do that, yeah. All right, so now we have loaded the A350, which is probably the worst aircraft in terms of performance. All right, so this is now in cold and dark, and we have frame generation. Look at the look at the FPS, guys. I mean, this is with frame generation. Imagine that. Yeah, and you can see that the aircraft is a little bit, you know, there is a little bit of jitters there. Okay. All right. So let me first start the aircraft. I think we need to come and turn these switches on. All right. Then we're going to come to the panel state, and we're going to say ready for takeoff. There we go. We'll just give it a second here to load. All right, I need to set my throttles properly. All right, there we go. Okay, so as you can see here now with Nvidia frame generation, we're getting 60 FPS. By the way, let me just do one thing here. I'm going to turn off Nvidia DLSS. Okay, I'm going to save and resume. Okay, now let's take a look at the FPS. Look at this, 34 FPS, 35 FPS in the ini builds at Los Angeles. You can see now the frames are really suffering. The experience isn't smooth and very jittery, very, very bad, right? All right, so now at 34 FPS, we are going to first bring lossless scaling, but I'm not, first let me show you with the fixed mode, the multiplier of 2. And we're going to say scale. All right, so now we should be able to get the display here and on top. And now we're getting 64 FPS, 70 FPS. Now watch, look at how smooth this is. Very, very smooth. And there is, again, a little bit more latency. You can see how the latency has gone up, obviously with a very involved aircraft like the Inibuild's A350. You can see how things have degraded. Without any form of frame generation, even with a 4090 graphics card. But with lossless scaling now in fixed mode, we are getting very decent FPS, and the performance is very good. You can see I can pan around the aircraft with no issues whatsoever. Right, so what is going to happen if we come here and change this to adaptive mode, and we're going to say 100 FPS. And let's scale again. All right. And we're going to see what happens now with lossless scaling. Now I'm getting 100 FPS steady. Okay. And look at how smooth the screen movement is. There's a little bit of artifacts, but nothing too serious there with lossless scaling. Very, very nice. Here again from the outside, I can pan the camera around with very, very nice and smooth experience in the cockpit and in the external view. We are going to take off in just a second here. So at 100 FPS now with lossless scaling in adaptive mode is very, very good. By the way, if you take this down to, let's say, 60 FPS, okay, it actually is going to give you a much better experience, because now the I think we need to unscale and scale. So let's unscale and scale again. So now from 36 FPS to 60 FPS is significant. So now we're getting 60 FPS here, and more than likely lossless scaling will be able to maintain 60 FPS at all times. And you can see again the experience is very, very good, and you have no degradation in performance whatsoever. Everything looks good, no jittering, no stuttering, looks really, really good. Okay, so at 60 FPS now, we can change this back now to 100. Okay, we're gonna unscale and scale again, and 100 FPS is actually pretty good. All right, so let's wait for it. All right, there we go. Now we have 100 FPS, and you can see immediately how the experience changes with lossless scaling. Again, we're not using any Nvidia generated frames right now. This is all just by using lossless scaling. Right, so let's go ahead and do the, yeah, it's going to give us obviously the warning there. But let's go ahead now and take off, and we'll do a little bit more testing. There we go. No, auto brake. There, we don't need that one. All right. So obviously it's going to sound because, right, so parking brake is released. Let's see how things look as we, all right. Now what I'm interested in is what's the experience like as we start actually rolling down the runway. And again, I don't want to see any stuttering. And as you can see, we are going down the runway just as smooth as butter. No issues whatsoever. Look at that, guys. Right, 180, we think we can go ahead and take off. There we go. Look at that. Very, very smooth. Very nice. Everything is still sharp and very clear. All right, let's begin the turn. By the way, they've really improved the flight model of the aircraft. All right. Okay. So obviously, again, we are not going to be testing my piloting skills today, guys. But now you can see that we are still maintaining 100 FPS. Look up here in the left upper corner. We're getting 100 FPS despite the fact that we're only getting 33 FPS natively. This is again without the Nvidia frame generation. So very, very good solution for those of you who do not have native frame generation. There we go here. Again, look at how beautiful the sim looks, guys. No complaints there whatsoever. All right. All right, we're back on track.
Stall. Stall. Stall.
Come on.
Stall.
All right, let's...
Stall.
Okay, let's go to the settings here and... Okay, assistance. Let's see. We have disable crash damage, disable stress. Yeah, let's disable that. And let's disable that. Okay, save and resume. All right, now we can figure things out here on our own. All right, there we go. Okay. So again, okay. All right. Let me go to... There we go. And let's see if we can turn on the autopilot. There we go. Okay. All right. Now we can do some more testing. Perfect. All right. So now, folks, we have no Nvidia DLSS, so no native frame generation. You can see that we're getting still 40 FPS, and still lossless scaling is able to give us a steady 100 FPS there. And this explains how smooth the sim is with no stuttering or jittering whatsoever. So here's what we're going to do now. We are going to come over here to lossless scaling. No, first we're going to go to our settings, and then we're going to go and change the frame generation back on to Nvidia DLSS. We're going to say save, and then we're going to resume. We're going to go to our friendly lossless scaling. We're going to say unscale, and let's take a quick look here at the numbers. Now we're getting about 70 FPS or so, as you can see here, and the performance is good. It's not bad here, and the sim is looking good, very smooth, no stuttering or jitters, but the movement isn't exactly the smoothest that I'd like. So can we again use the same thing, use Nvidia DLSS with the adaptive adaptive method from lossless scaling? I'm sure we can. So here we're going to go again, and we're going to use 300 FPS, adaptive mode, scale, and go back to the sim. Okay, let's see what happens now. Now the first thing you'll see that the frames will drop here, and because we are using adaptive mode, it doesn't drop as much as the fixed mode. Remember, in fixed mode, for every native frame, only one frame will be generated. In the adaptive mode, most frames are actually generated, so you don't see a bigger drop, and we don't also see, a huge increase in latency. Now we're running the sim at 300 FPS, and look at how smooth things are. There you go. Look at that. The sim is looking great. It's very stable, and there are a little bit of artifacts around the aircraft when I move it. Look, when I move the mouse, you'll see a little bit of artifacts there, but nothing too serious here. Very, very nice, and able to create a very, very good experience there, considering having Nvidia DLSS with the lossless scaling. So it is a solution that works on its own. It works with Nvidia DLSS, as you've witnessed, and it significantly increases the performance overall at the expense of higher latency, as you can see. Right. So, in conclusion, guys, if you do not have a graphics card capable of native frame generation, the lossless scaling solution is definitely going to work for you. I highly recommend that you increment your FPS in adaptive mode, but do so wisely. Don't go and say like 300 FPS like I have. My machine obviously is a very capable machine, so I can push things to the limit. And maybe I don't need 300 FPS. It does look very smooth though. All right, but I think at 100 FPS, so if I change this here to 100, and things are still going to look very, very good, and the performance is going to be really good. As you can see now, I have steady 100 FPS, and the latency is going to be lower. And now I have exactly the same experience, but with, you know, probably more stable sim. So now I don't really have to worry too much about the frames dropping in any particular situation. So if you don't have an Nvidia card that is capable of native frame generation, I highly recommend that you use lossless scaling. I also highly recommend that you increment the FPS, get about 30, so double it. Only double your FPS. So if you're getting natively, say 30 FPS, double it to 60, but double it using adaptive mode. As you can see in Microsoft Flight Sim, it does not affect performance at all. It does not, beg your pardon, it does not affect the visual quality whatsoever. It works like a chime. It just really works very well, and it will give you exactly what you want. It will double your FPS, and lossless scaling costs, what, $7? It's very, very cheap. And it's much, much cheaper than upgrading your graphics card. So use adaptive mode, double it only. You can use the fixed mode, by the way, which might have less artifact and may have better visual quality in some games, but specifically in Microsoft Flight Sim, it really doesn't make that much of a difference, as you've seen. If you, however, have an Nvidia card that is capable of native frame generation, you can still benefit from lossless scaling, as you've seen here in this live stream, where we were able to fly at 300 FPS with no issues. No issues with the Indy builds, A350, which is probably the most demanding in terms of power. Lossless scaling has been a game changer. Absolutely, Megabyte Gaming. Thanks for being here. Yeah. All right. So you've sold me on this app, but I'll also see about other similar apps first. Well, for sure, you can go ahead and try. I definitely think that the investment I made in lossless scaling was probably one of the best that I've made. Q8, what does lossless scaling sacrifice to get this higher FPS? Do you know? It sacrifices latency. So just to reiterate, it uses the same capture API that your recording software uses. So if you record your screen, so content creators will create videos and they record screens, that's exactly what it uses. It uses that same API. So because it uses that API, it will take a little bit more time to generate those frames. It's not something native. We have Serling Davis. Welcome to Captain. Thank you, sir, for your support. I appreciate it very much. That's very, very kind of you, sir. Thank you. Really, really appreciate that. So the only expense is $7 and a little bit more latency. That's the only thing that you're going to suffer. So, by the way, even for latency, you can, it happens with the mouse. So it's not something that you are going to, as you can see here, I have lossless scaling now, and you can't really notice any slowness, but you can get it. And to fix this, you can go to your mouse settings. Okay, go to your mouse settings, and you see this enhanced pointer precision. Just turn this off. if you turn this off, actually, let me turn it off real quick here. Now you'll see, again, I can have much faster movement in the cockpit here, which I personally don't like. But if you experience slowness due to latency, you can always come here and change this setting. What did I? No, I want mouse settings, so let me do here. So yeah, so just go and turn this off to get rid of the, it will enhance your experience. It will not improve the latency, but it will enhance your experience in this sim. That's what it's going to do. So that is really the beauty of lossless scaling. It comes in very cheap, and it really does the job very well, at the expense of increased latency, which is totally okay. And by the way, lossless scaling was not made for a 4090 card or a card that is capable of frame generation. It was meant for the lower end cards, those cards that are not able of creating frames or generating frames natively. So there was one of you guys who wanted me to do a quick test with the Phoenix, but look at this, guys. Yeah, looks really, really good. So I am going to satisfy that request. I feel a bit of added latency isn't a big issue in a flight sim, at least not compared to an FPS. Yes, that is very, very true. If you're not in a shooting game, RTX 3080 should be just fine. If you're not in a first shooter game and where latency is really going to matter, it really doesn't matter. You're really not going to feel it. So let me go to the main menu here. We're going to go and unscale. So you guys wanted me to test the Phoenix. So let's come here and let's see. Where is my Phoenix? By the way, I'm really starting to like the FS Labs. I kind of like it a little bit more than the Phoenix, to be honest. All right, so here's the Phoenix sim, Saudi Arabian. I'm not going to change the delivery, so we'll say save and back. And let's see, where do you want to depart from? Do you think FPS will matter when Microsoft releases the download option? For sure, FPS will always matter. Sam, did you see the video about process Lasso by KIP on the ground? He also made a good video about to create profile within this tool. Signing, I don't have an AMD, so I don't know. All right, so you guys want me to go to Seattle. All right, we can do that. Seattle. All right, and we're going to come here. Let's see, we're going to select this one here, so we go to Seattle City. There we go. 34. Do we have a runway before that? We do. There, let's take 34 right, set it as departure. And let's go ahead and start the flight. Right, let's see here. JFK. All right, we can do another test if you guys want, maybe in the A380, for example. And we'll do it there. No worries at all. All right, so here we are, the Phoenix A320 at, all right, there we go. Not much better than the ini-build, to be honest. We're getting about, no, it's much better, yeah. So performance-wise, it's definitely better. So we are now in the Phoenix. What are we getting? We're getting about 72 FPS, 74 FPS. By the way, for the cockpit refresh rate, I normally have it at medium. But for today's stream, I made sure that it's on maximum as well, so that, we really put things to the test with but it looks pretty nice. It's pretty smooth. and with the frame generation there. And so without frame generation, if we go to the settings here, and let me turn this off, and we're going to save this and go back to the sim. And now we're getting 24 FPS, 30, 32, very, very bad. All right. Okay. So let me come over here, and we're going to go to Phoenix. We're going to go to panel state, and we're going to say ready and activate. All right. So now the aircraft's coming up. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come to lossless scaling. And I'm going to change this to double that. So I'm getting about 35 FPS without Nvidia frame generation. So I'm going to change this to about 70. All right. And I'm going to say scale. And then now we can see that lossless scaling is now doing the job. And now you can see, yeah, look at that. Look at how smooth the experience now. Everything is just buttery. No stuttering whatsoever in the sim. And things are looking great. There we go. Again, the outside. Again, no degradation in visual quality whatsoever. And again, I'm using TAA, by the way. And I've tried the same with DLSS, with DLAA. And I've also noticed no problems at all with the visual quality. So now we can see the sim frames has gone down to 34 F. It's a little bit, but you can see how the latency has increased, guys. See that? Now we're getting a steady 70 FPS, and the sim is looking good. And let's go ahead and take a look here. We'll set flaps 1. We'll arm the speed brake and auto brake max. We don't have anything else, so we're just going to go ahead and let me set the speed here to 250 knots. And we'll also set our altitude. I think that's good. And we'll set the altitude to 15,000 feet. Again, look at this. Look at how smooth the experience is. 70 FPS without the Nvidia frame generation. Okay. Again, we want to test how now the important thing is, as we roll down the runway, we want to check for any stuttering, any jittering, and as you can see, it's butter smooth at 70 FPS with only lossless scaling. Right, 140 FPS. Here we go. And here we depart. And here's an outside view. Wow. Right, let's retract that, track that. What do you guys think? Pretty smooth, isn't it? Again, very steady FPS at exactly 70. And that explains why the sim is running very, very smooth. Again, this is now without the Nvidia generation. There's a wing view for you guys. No, we need this back on climb. There we go. Okay. What is with 2024 and the cockpit windows from outside? The iFly Max has that weird lack of transparency also.
I was sleeping on the sap. Neat, clicking Gormugs emoji.
Hey! Von Cruel, thank you very much for coming up with 2 Canadian dollars. I appreciate that, my friend. Thank you for your support. With 490, no wonder. No. It's got nothing to do with 490. As I've demonstrated today, we're doing the 70 FPS here without the Nvidia frame generation. So you can definitely achieve very similar results. Maybe not at maximum settings, okay, but you can run at probably medium settings, and you can have 60 FPS with lossless scaling. So this is not meant to say that everyone is going to be able to do 300 FPS. What I'm trying to show here is how you can have solutions to lower performance without really making huge investment in a new graphics card. If you are happy with, buying this app for $7, then you can definitely achieve very good results, regardless of you definitely don't need a 4090 to get 70 FPS in 2024. You can definitely enjoy the sim at very, very high FPS without it. Right, so this is the Phoenix, as you can see here, and running very smooth. Things are looking very sharp, very nice. And what we can do is now we can go to the settings menu. So we're going to go here to the settings, and we're going to enable Nvidia DLSS. We're going to save, go back, go to lossless scaling, unscale, and we're going to now add, maybe we'll make it, actually, let's do 300 FPS. Scale, let's go back, let's see here. There we go. And now, as you can see, we are getting 300 FPS, 64 natively, at an increased latency. But look at how smooth this sim is running now. Wow. Very, very smooth. All right. I really don't feel, I don't feel that it is necessary to do another test, because I think you guys get the idea. Yes, that's true, but other 4090 have a massive VRAM problem. I get about 70-80% of the same results with the 3080 Ti, just as a few tweaks needed. Perfect, Stan. Thanks for that. I have a laptop 3080 running on high settings and can easily get 1600 FPS, whichever settings I choose. That's very cool. I'm glad that you're not having any issues there. My PC is upgraded to the max. Next upgrade will include memory, mainboard, processor, GPU, and we're not doing that soon. Yeah. Well, I think you guys get the idea. Now, again, in terms of the performance, without a capable card of generating native frames, definitely lossless scaling is an option. If you already have a graphics card that is capable of native frame generation, you have also seen that lossless scaling can also be very useful and can help you create additional frames and enjoy a much smoother experience. Latency is really not an issue, while I have to say that it will increase the latency. But in a flight sim, I think it's really just fine. Well, forgot to mention that with lossless, yeah. So again, the sim is starting to look really nice. Here's it gonna look. And here's a nice wing view for your viewing pleasure. So in conclusion, folks, I have shown you my Nvidia control panel settings, which I highly recommend. My Nvidia control panel settings are the best settings, hands down. I will tell you this in confidence. Please do not play with your Nvidia control panel settings. Don't, watch these videos tell you change this and change that, because it will not help. And if anything, it will actually degrade your performance. I have done testing over a year for Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, and they work exactly for 2024. So don't change anything. Just do exactly what I've shown you in this video. Reset everything to default and do only the settings that I've shown. Don't change anything else. I highly recommend that if you have a DLSS frame generation, that you download the latest DLSS using the DLSS swapper, and make sure that in the Nvidia app that you set it so that it uses the latest DLSS as opposed to the one that comes with the Asobo by default. Aside from those two recommendations, I'll also highly recommend that you install Microsoft Flight Sim on an SSD M.2 hard disk, and don't install anything else. Please don't install it where your operating system is. For any other add-ons, you can install them anywhere else you want. Just leave your sim alone on that drive. I've done the same for X-Plane. It's installed on its own SSD, and there are no apps whatsoever running in that folder, in that hard disk. Then, moving to the settings. Now, the settings, what I would recommend, by the way, if you go to my Nvidia, let me just show you something very quickly here. If I go to graphics and I go to Microsoft Flight Sim, you'll see that I pretty much have followed every recommendation here. So I highly recommend that you use this for the recommended values, then go to the sim and start tweaking things around. So I've used everything with the exception of anti-aliasing. I'm using TAA because I just don't like how blurry the DLSS is, and I've turned off the air traffic. So the preview value, recommended value, is ultra. Everything else is pretty much matching the recommendation here. Nothing is different from the recommendation. Again, super resolution, I've disabled this. It's recommending Nvidia DLAA, which is the best method if you want to use anything other than TAA. It gives you the better performance. But everything else is pretty much here exactly as per the recommendation. So I haven't really changed anything, with very few exceptions. And make sure that you also go to this here and change the model preset. So again, to summarize the use of lossless scaling, now that we've summarized everything to do with my settings or PC settings, I highly recommend that you use lossless scaling in adaptive mode. And the best way, the best number, is to use adaptive mode, double the amount of FPS that you are getting in this sim. So if you are getting 30 FPS, use adaptive mode and set it to 60. This is going to ensure that your sim runs very smooth at 60 FPS. Again, the expense there is higher latency and possibility of degradation in performance. In visual quality. But as you've seen today, we've tested this here together on live stream, and there is absolutely no degradation in the visual quality whatsoever. So you're good to go there. Adaptive mode, lossless scaling, and double the FPS that you see on the screen. You can go maybe 10 FPS more, but just don't push it over the limit. If you have an Nvidia card that is capable of generating frames natively, then you can also use lossless scaling to increase the FPS and get much better experience in the sim. Again, you can also cap your FPS. So if in your generated frames natively with Nvidia DLSS. If you're, let's say, getting 100 FPS, don't do 200, but do 200 minus 20. So minus 20 frames from the whatever you're getting natively with Nvidia DLSS, minus 20, and double minus 20. So if you're getting 100 FPS, the double of that is 200 FPS. Set the adaptive mode to 180 FPS. This is going to ensure that you never go below the FPS that are natively generated in the sim, and it will also ensure that you have good latency and no degradation in visual quality whatsoever. Well, or if it's on a drive with other games that you never play at the same time, that's fine too. Yeah, if there is nothing running in the background, that's okay. How come I'm getting more frames in MSFS 2024 than MSFS 2020? That's because MSFS 2024 doesn't have a lot of the involved scenery that 2020 has, which is downloaded already. So as you fly, it's being generated, it's being streamed, but a lot of the I'm not even able to say that. I think a lot of the generated buildings are already there. They're installed locally on your hard drive. Here, it's not. So it makes a huge difference. Do I have to manually intervene with the lossless scaling app every time, or can I set it and forget it? You can set it and forget it. As a matter of fact, what you can do is you can go, I have this here, you can add a profile, and you can tell the profile here, if you click add, and you can browse your MSFS executable, and then you can simply add it there, and what it will do is it will start automatically when you start MSFS. Maybe I'll cover scaling in another video, but yeah, this is yeah. So yeah, you can definitely set a profile so that it starts automatically with your sim, and you just set and forget. Okay, so I think we get the idea here, and this is pretty much what I wanted to share with you guys here in this live stream. Let's see here. I hope that you have found it useful and insightful, and I hope that you are able to improve your experience flying in the sim in the days to come, using lossless scaling, or some of the settings that I've shown here in this live stream. Well, I want to thank you guys for being with me this evening. It's been a lot of fun having you. Thank you all for the support and for really all the interaction. I'm sorry if I haven't answered all your questions, because I really wanted to focus on showing you as much as possible during this live stream. I will be seeing you guys again possibly on Tuesday, but until then, please take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you all very soon. Thanks for tuning in, and have a lovely day. Bye-bye for now.